This is going to be my second preview of the Ravens-Texans Week 1 matchup in Baltimore. One element that I think is of huge importance, primary importance, that's why I titled this video Leadoff Hitters. I think this is one of the first things that the Ravens have got to stop and the Texans have got to establish. Is the battle between Dameon Pierce, who's incredibly talented and somehow underrated, it seems like, versus Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. Now, I think it's one of the determining factors for who walks out of Baltimore with a win. But I think it's the first thing that's got to be handled. And that's why I titled the video Leadoff Hitters as somewhat of an oversimplification on two levels. Number one, the Texans' offensive line and tight ends versus the Ravens' D-line and outside linebackers. That's going to play a huge role in how well Smith, Queen, and Pierce are able to perform. Obviously, they need their supporting cast to do their jobs blocking or defeating blocks, to put each of them in position to either gain more yards or to stop Pierce from gaining yards in the case of Smith and Queen. The second angle where I think this is too simplistic of a view is that the Texans could theoretically win if Pierce is quieted on Sunday. But Houston's path to getting a win is a whole lot smoother and more predictable if Pierce can meet or exceed 80 yards on the ground, somewhere in that area. It might be 65 on a limited number of carries, but he's got to have an impact for the game to go smoother for them, and he's capable of it. If you're a Ravens fan, you don't know, this guy's a serious talent. I think he ended up with 939 yards last year overall. Missed the last 4 games of the season. If the Texans can't move the ball consistently, meaning they're one-dimensional, it's going to be difficult for them to go into Baltimore and get a win. I know that the Ravens' DB core is depleted in terms of not playing with Marlon Humphrey on the field, and who knows what we're going to get out of Ronald Darby or if he's even going to start. My point in doing this video first, after the larger or long-form preview I did, is that Pierce is a guy who I think can win 2 or 3 games for the Texans over the course of a season. Now, you're going to get contributions from other players inside of each game, but that's the talent level I see in him. I think he's worth 2 or 3 wins. These are plays from last year, obviously, so the scheme is different, quote unquote, but there'll be certain things that remain the same. They just are conceptually similar with the way things are blocked. I would look for at least 18 to 20 carries from Pierce because he's just a workhorse. And if you're a Ravens fan, you know that Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith plan on meeting him in whatever open space is created by the Texans' offensive line. That's just who they are, and that's how they play football. Take a look at some film or some plays of Queen and Smith, and look, I'm not going to spot shadow him. I mean, you know where to find him. Now, now he's number 0, first Ravens player in the history of the organization to wear number 0, but he was 18 last year, and then obviously Queen is 6. If you're a Texans fan, those guys are, generally playing off the line scrimmage, but sometimes they'll walk up. Pierce is super underrated, if you ask me, for a guy who had an amazing 6-game stretch during his rookie season. Now, the Texans only won 1 game with Pierce on the field. They did have a tie in Week 1, I think, with the Colts. But I think it's clear how this roster has been upgraded, bringing in C.J. Stroud, Denzel Perryman, drafting Will Anderson, Tank Dell, super talented rookie receiver. Even still, to me, Pierce is the guy. And if you're a Texans fan and that's not the way it's perceived, with Texans fans and in that area, please let me know in the comment section. But in terms of the guy who can have the most impact and touch the ball the most and make plays that maybe he shouldn't in terms of breaking tackles and getting more yards than was there on film, Dameon Pierce is that guy. Looking back at 2022, his rookie year, from Week 4, which was a 34-24 loss to the Chargers, up through their road loss to the Giants in Week 10, which I think was close. I think it was like 23-16 or 24-16. So from Week 4 to Week 10, check this out. Here's what Pierce had. 590 rushing yards on 119 carries. Roughly 4.95 yards per carry. I think it's 4.94 something, but 4.95 rounded. Included in that was a really dominant 26 carries, 99-yard performance against the Jags, the only win, when he was on the field last year, where I believe he broke 17 tackles in that game. And the Jags have a super talented young defense, if you ask me. Guys that get after the football. They do tend to be small, in my opinion, but they get after it. Now, one of the things that Pierce is able to, I think, is unique about him is that he's as effective in the shotgun as he is when a quarterback's under center. toss plays, zone stuff, I don't see a difference in what he's capable of. Now, I'm sure there's people who will say, well, he only averaged blank yards per carry on certain concepts. What I'm saying is this is a guy who on any carry can do what you just saw. Additionally, it also helps when teams, particularly NFC East teams, the Eagles and the Giants, really had trouble lining up against some of the stuff that I call B-gun. So the back is on opposite side from the tight end, or in this case, two tight ends. Just do a count pre-snap of what the Eagles have over here, and we're going to count this safety as 4. And then this D tackle or nose tackle is a half man. So you got 4.5. So on any run concept over to the side, this Mike linebacker has got to cross the midline. He's got to climb over to this side where the point of attack is. I've already showed this play from the All-22. Now it's the end zone. Well, what you're going to get is you're going to get a pulling left guard. You're going to get a pulling left tackle. So it's +2, where the Texans already are going to have a numbers advantage as soon as Pierce crosses the midline to the other side as well. Some of this is just math. I mean, it's great blocking by players, and it's great vision and running hard and athleticism by Pierce. But look at what they've generated. The wall here, the kick out on the edge defender, tight end kind of arc released off screen, so he took a DB with him. And then you've got this pulling tackle, the left tackle, coming through here to lead Pierce. And then once you get Pierce out in space on his tracks, that's it. He's going to break tackles. Multiple tackles, 3, as you see on this one particular play, and then shoves one more guy. He's super talented. For a Ravens fan, for me anyway, like as a Ravens fan, he's a scary dude for your team to have to tackle 18, 20 times. This is a legit talent that I don't think is talked about enough. I know that, there's other rookie running backs from last year that made an impact, and those guys are all talented. There's other guys across the league that deserve attention as well. This guy's one that doesn't seem to get as much as he should. Another play that I'd like to just briefly talk about, when you see a tight, now this is Nico Collins, a super interesting player for his size and speed and agility. He's going to block the edge defender here, but look what you've got. He's tightly aligned, and he's got the wrong foot up and the wrong foot back. Most time receivers have their inside foot up. I forget who it was on Twitter, maybe like 3 weeks ago, was talking about this. This should be a clue, but nobody for the Chargers has eyes on it at all. Everybody's looking at whatever their key is, tackle, guard, fullback. And in this case, Collins is able to pin down on the edge defender. And once again, you can see a wall that's created, very similar to the play that I had paused against the Eagles. Fullback is going to lead out, but he's going to go get the number 2 defender from the sideline, the number 2 guy at the second level, and then they're going to leave this corner unblocked. And everybody says, well, you make corners tackle, they can't tackle. Well, corners are taught to be the secondary force player, meaning if the contain or the primary force player breaks down, you've got to be secondary force. He can't jump inside here on the chance that Pierce goes there, because then Pierce is just going to run up the sideline. Pierce takes this up inside the fullback's block, downhill, is not able to disrupt his tracks. If he can get on his tracks untouched at or near the line of scrimmage, what you just saw there is an anomaly in that he had a lane and he wasn't able to burst through there and get to the second and then the third level. You can count on Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen showing up at the point of attack and bringing some fire. Those two are integral parts of all aspects of the Ravens defense, against the pass or the run, but they're particularly needed this week against the threat that is Dameon Pierce and his Texans running game. Again, I haven't shown you any film of them from the preseason necessarily because I don't need to. Like, Dameon Pierce, A, didn't play a whole lot in the preseason, and B, you should have seen enough already to know that he's a serious threat against any defense in the NFL. Both of these guys, Queen and Smith, are capable and show consistency in fitting off the running back's cut or forcing him to find another gap. For the Texans, O-line, regardless of who plays, I know they have offensive line injuries, particularly at center, and then I think left guard. They need to combo up to get to Queen and Smith. Or those two guys, if they're left on block, are just going to match Pierce's cuts and meet him at or near the line of scrimmage. So some of those bigger gains, Queen and Smith is going to be there. 4, 5, 6 yard gain is a positive for the Texans, don't get me wrong. But they're going to need to generate a whole lot of those to drive 70, 80 yards against this Ravens defense. And the whole point of the way Mike McDonald does things with the pass defense, split field quarters coverage, and the run defense is force you to execute up and down the field and at some point force you into a 3rd and long that you're not able to complete or not able to convert. Look, tackling Pierce is more than a notion. If you tackle him 15, 18 times a game, that sounds great. But what if he gets the ball 22 times? It's no easy task, especially if, as I said earlier, he can get on his tracks and not be disruptive. The Ravens' interior D tackles, D linemen, Michael Pierce, Travis Jones, Justin Madubuike, Broderick Washington, Brent Urban, they're going to be under fire this week. They can't get scooped on the backside, meaning they can't get cut off on the backside and let Pierce get downhill while an offensive lineman is in the face of Queen and Smith. That's the nightmare scenario for the Ravens. I haven't talked about it at all, but look, C.J. Stroud can make plays on his own. I know he had a rough start in the preseason against the Patriots, but he was not supported there in terms of the offensive line that was on the field. None of those guys, I think 2 of those guys were going to be starters at the time, but the tackles were super raw in that game and how they handled things. And the Texans' 2 starting tackles, if they have them both out there week 1, are going to be a real problem for some of the Ravens guys to deal with on the edge. It's a talented group. I think what the Texans are going to do is use Pierce to try to generate high percentage, low risk opportunities for Stroud. And that's not saying he can't do certain things. That's just the reality of what they're trying to do. Why? Because he's that talented. Because Pierce is that talented. They can rely on him to produce. Devin Singletary also is a capable runner, but Pierce's rugged and just punishing style is truly the engine for this Houston offense, as he was in 2022. And look, they have other additions on offense, don't get me wrong, that are going to have an impact. Robert Woods, like I said, they drafted Tank Dell. C.J. Stroud's going to be, I think, an excellent quarterback in the NFL. I know people have a wide array of opinions on that guy. Pierce is the guy at the top of the lineup. He's the guy the Ravens, in my opinion, have got to stop first, and they've got to stop throughout the game. The Texans, I believe, are going to be committed to their offensive style. You can stop them for 2 or 3 possessions. This is just what I suspect. And they're going to continue to get Pierce the football because he's just that dangerous. Smith and Queen and the D tackles up front for the Ravens have to cut the head off that snake and not let the Texans' offense get going. We as Ravens fans think that the Ravens have a more complete roster, more experienced, and we got Lamar Jackson, and we think that we're better than the Texans. For that to be proven, for them to get separation between the Texans and themselves on Sunday afternoon, they've got to stop or slow down Dameon Pierce. And it's not an easy thing to do. He's a guy that I think is among the best in the league at running back. There's certainly other guys that are up there, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, and others. But Dameon Pierce, if he's able to play 17 games this year in this offense, I don't see any reason he's not a 1,300, 1,400-yard guy unless they're trying to limit his touches and not just roll up 25, 28 touches a game for him because they have other weapons there and other things they want to get accomplished. Let me know if you guys agree with me, first of all, that this is the primary matchup it's the first domino that needs to fall for whatever team wins the game. For the Ravens to stop and ultimately gain separation from the Texans, this is the domino that they've got to knock down. For the Texans, this is the domino that they've got to keep standing and charge downfield with, which is Dameon Pierce. Appreciate you guys' time. If you checked out the video this long, let me know in the comment section. If you think other Ravens fans or other Texans fans would enjoy this breakdown and you think it was balanced enough and fair and appropriate, please consider sharing a link to it on social media to help this content get more reach.